When people think of the descendants of Adam and Eve, their minds often gravitate toward the well-known story of Cain and Abel, the two brothers whose tragic conflict forever shaped the narrative of the human family. Cain, the elder, who, in a fit of jealousy and rage, took his brother's life, and Abel, the younger, whose innocence and righteousness made him the favored one in God's eyes, represent a dichotomy that has captured human imagination for millennia. However, amidst the dramatic and heartbreaking tale of Cain and Abel, a significant part of Adam and Eve's lineage is frequently overlooked: their daughters. These daughters, though not as prominently discussed in popular stories, hold fascinating roles in ancient texts and traditions that have been passed down through various religious and cultural histories. In this video, we'll venture beyond the familiar tales of Cain and Abel and explore the mysterious and intriguing lineage of Adam and Eve's daughters, drawing from sources such as the Book of Jubilees, the Holy Bible, and other ancient traditions. The existence and stories of these daughters are often shrouded in mystery, with many scholars and theologians debating the number of daughters Adam and Eve had and their significance in early human history. Some sources suggest that Adam and Eve had many children beyond Cain, Abel, and Seth, up to 30 or more, some of whom were daughters that played pivotal roles in the expansion of humanity. It is in these daughters that we find a rich tapestry of untold history, as they too were part of the early human experience, contributing to the growing population after the expulsion from the Garden of Eden. One of the central texts that mention the daughters is the Book of Jubilees, an ancient Jewish religious work that expands upon the Genesis narrative. The Book of Jubilees suggests that Adam and Eve had several daughters, including a woman named Awan, who, according to this text, became Cain's wife. This reveals that in the early generations of humanity, intermarriage among siblings was a necessity for the propagation of the human race, a practice that later generations would condemn, but was seen as essential at the dawn of time. The Holy Bible itself does not provide extensive details about Adam and Eve's daughters, but there are hints and clues scattered throughout the text. In Genesis 5:4, the Bible states, "After Seth was born, Adam lived 800 years and had other sons and daughters." This brief mention, though not elaborated upon, opens up the possibility of many daughters whose names and stories have been lost to time or simply omitted from the canonical scriptures. Some scholars have speculated that these daughters played vital roles in the establishment of early human societies, contributing to the survival and expansion of Adam and Eve's lineage. Ancient traditions from various cultures also shed light on the roles these daughters may have played. In some apocryphal texts and Gnostic traditions, the daughters of Adam and Eve are portrayed as powerful figures, sometimes even possessing unique spiritual or mystical insights. In these texts, they are seen not merely as passive figures, but as integral to the unfolding human narrative, with their own trials, struggles, and contributions to early humanity. One such figure is named Azura, who is said to have married her brother Seth and continued the line from which Noah and eventually Abraham descended. These traditions paint a picture of a world far more complex than the simple stories often taught about early humanity. But how many daughters did Adam and Eve have? And what do we really know about them? While some sources, like the Book of Jubilees, suggest names for a few of them, the exact number remains a mystery. Some traditions suggest that Adam and Eve may have had as many as 50 children, with a significant portion being daughters. These daughters, though largely absent from mainstream narratives, would have played a crucial role in the formation of early human communities, marrying their brothers and producing the next generations of humans. The mystery surrounding Adam and Eve's daughters raises many questions. Were these daughters given unique roles or responsibilities in the early human family? How did they influence the shaping of human civilization? Could their stories, if they were more widely known, change our understanding of the early days of humanity? These are questions that scholars and religious historians have pondered for centuries, yet much of the mystery remains unsolved. What we do know is that these women were instrumental in the continuation of the human race, their lives intertwined with the destinies of their more famous brothers, Cain, Abel, and Seth. While mainstream religious texts offer little about their specific lives, the existence of these daughters is a reminder that the story of humanity's beginning is more layered and complex than we often While mainstream religious texts offer little about their specific lives, the existence of these daughters is a reminder that the story of humanity's beginning is more layered and complex than we often realize. Their stories, though hidden in the shadows of their more well-known male counterparts, are equally significant in the grand narrative of humanity's origin. Through these forgotten daughters, we gain a more comprehensive view of what life might have been like in those early days. A time when the world was new, the rules of society were still being written, and the human race was just beginning to find its footing. So who were these daughters of Adam and Eve? What can we learn from the fragments of their stories that have survived through ancient texts and oral traditions? And, perhaps most importantly, why have their stories been overlooked for so long? These are questions we must continue to explore, as they offer us a richer, more nuanced understanding of the dawn of humanity. If this exploration of Adam and Eve's daughters has piqued your curiosity, I invite you to continue this journey with us. There is so much more to uncover, and as we delve deeper into ancient texts, forgotten histories, and untold stories, we come closer to understanding the full picture of humanity's beginnings. Together, we can bring these forgotten histories to light, and perhaps in doing so, gain a better understanding of ourselves and our place in the grand story of creation. The story of Adam and Eve's daughters remains a compelling enigma, one that beckons us to delve even deeper into the forgotten corners of our ancient past. In the grand narrative of human creation, these daughters have often been relegated to the background, overshadowed by the more prominent figures of their brothers and the well-known accounts of early mankind. Yet it is in their untold stories that we find a fuller, richer tapestry of human history, a history that includes not just the actions of men, but the lives, contributions, and legacies of women who were essential to the survival and growth of humanity. When we begin to explore the question of why these daughters are so rarely mentioned, it opens up an intriguing discourse on the nature of storytelling, historical preservation, and the value placed on different kinds of narratives in ancient societies. In many cultures, the stories of men, especially those involving conflict, power, and dominion, were prioritized, preserved, and passed down through the ages. Cain and Abel's tragic confrontation, for example, is a story that speaks to fundamental human themes of jealousy, rivalry, and morality, making it a timeless tale. But what about the stories of the daughters, who perhaps faced their own trials, struggles, and moral dilemmas in those early days of civilization? If we consider the context of ancient storytelling, it becomes clear that women's roles, while often essential, were frequently recorded in more subtle ways. Their lives might have centered around community building, nurturing, and sustaining family structures, roles that were critical to the early human experience, but may not have been deemed as dramatic or worthy of historical record by the standards of ancient chroniclers. And yet their impact was undeniable. In a world where survival was a daily challenge, where food had to be gathered and prepared, and where the next generation had to be nurtured and taught, the contributions of these women were no less important than those of the men who tilled the soil or defended their families from danger. One of the most fascinating aspects of these daughters' stories is how their legacy endured despite the scarcity of detailed records. In many ancient traditions, they are revered not just as the wives and mothers of the next generation, but as figures of wisdom, resilience, and quiet strength. In Gnostic and apocryphal texts, there are references to these women as keepers of secret knowledge, bearers of spiritual insight, and even as co-creators in the divine plan for humanity. Such texts suggest that their roles were not merely passive, but active and influential in shaping the spiritual trajectory of early mankind. In some ancient traditions, for example, the daughters of Adam and Eve are depicted as playing critical roles in preserving the spiritual purity of their lineage. These traditions speak of the daughters as being especially attuned to the divine will, serving as mediators between their brothers and the divine, and even influencing decisions that would affect the future of humanity. Such stories, though less commonly known, offer a glimpse into the rich spiritual legacy of these women, suggesting that their contributions were not only practical, but also deeply spiritual. Another fascinating element to consider is the possibility that these daughters had knowledge of the pre-fall state of humanity in Eden, a time before sin, death, and suffering entered the world. As the direct descendants of Adam and Eve, who once walked with God in the Garden of Eden, these daughters may have carried with them memories, traditions, and wisdom passed down from their parents about what life was like before the fall. This knowledge, even in fragments, would have set them apart as unique bearers of insight into the nature of humanity's original purity and closeness with the divine. Perhaps it was their responsibility in some way to keep alive the memory of Eden, to remind their brothers and their children of a time when humanity lived in harmony with creation. As we consider the legacy of these daughters, it's important to ask ourselves what lessons we can learn from their untold stories. In a world where women's contributions have often been overlooked or undervalued, the story of Adam and Eve's daughters reminds us of the importance of looking beyond the surface of history to uncover the full picture. These daughters, though rarely mentioned by name in canonical texts, were just as essential to the survival and flourishing of the human race as their more famous brothers. Their quiet strength, their resilience, and their role as the mothers of future generations ensured that humanity would continue to grow and thrive after the fall from Eden. Their stories also challenge us to reconsider what it means to be remembered. While their names may not be as widely known as those of Cain, Abel, or Seth, their legacy lives on in the countless generations that followed. Every human being on this earth today can trace their lineage back to Adam and Eve, and that lineage includes the daughters who helped build the foundations of early human society. Though their contributions may not have been recorded in the dramatic fashion of their brothers, they were no less significant. Theirs is a legacy of quiet endurance, of nurturing life in the harshest of conditions, and of preserving the divine spark that was passed down from the Garden of Eden. As we conclude this exploration into the untold history of Adam and Eve's daughters, we are left with more questions than answers. What more can we learn about these women from ancient texts, oral traditions, and apocryphal stories? How might their stories, if more widely known, change our understanding of the early days of humanity? And perhaps, most importantly, what does their story teach us about the value of every human life, regardless of whether it has been preserved in the pages of history? The story of Adam and Eve's daughters reminds us that history is never complete, that there are always more stories to uncover, more voices to hear, and more legacies to honor. And as we continue to explore the mysteries of the past, we are reminded that every life, no matter how hidden or forgotten, has played a role in shaping the world we live in today.
Thanks for watching our latest videos by clicking on the video in the screen, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.